You're listening to Head Voice, bringing you inside the minds of singers and sound creators who are redefining what it means to make music with the voice. I'm Kayla.
And I'm Evan, and this week we're joined by Brett Castro, who's a singer-songwriter from Ohio, who's currently based in New York and recently graduated from the NYU Tisch School of the Arts.
During this episode, we talked about his time at Acapella Academy and his musical endeavors both personally and with the NYU N'harmonics. Stay tuned.
Don't
Podcast?
I don't listen to too many podcasts, but I have listened to yours the most.
Word. Cool. Thank you.
Because I have known so many people who have been on your podcast, and so I've listened and very much enjoyed it.
Oh, that's awesome.
No, yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us this week. We are joined by Brett Castro. Thank you for talking to us and taking the time.
Of course. Thank you for inviting me here.
Yeah. Well, we were just talking about podcasts, and in one of mine, all of our favorite podcasts, and the writer is the host always starts with, "So you were born." So that's going to be my first question to you. You were born, where were you born? And where did you grow up?
Right. So I was born in Solon, Ohio, which is currently, it didn't disappear. It's a suburb of Cleveland, Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
And so I grew up there and didn't leave until I went to college in New York.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I was in a suburb in Ohio for 18 years.
Oh, wow.
Word.
Yeah.
Was it a musical household? Were your parents musicians? Were they playing music?
My parents at some point did do music in their life. My dad once drummed and my mom did theater. And so one summer when I was 9 years old, my mom signed me up for a theater camp because I had too much energy, and I think she wanted me out of the house. So that's kind of where the whole music thing got its start for me.
Yeah, I was going to actually ask, so when did you, I guess, realize music was something that you were interested in or that you were good at?
I don't know when I really realized it myself. It was more of my parents kind of putting me, they put me in piano lessons. At one point, I did ask for a clarinet for Christmas because I thought Squidward was cool. So I did get that when I was really young. But then I guess it was after I started theater, I really fell in love with that. And from there it grew.
I have a hot tip that says that you're in the Solon Music and Motion show choir. Is that true?
Who'd you Yeah.
From an anonymous source.
Okay. I feel like I know your source. But yes, I was in high school as well as doing theater. I did partake in the show choir. And that was a very, very intense experience. To say the least.
Yeah, show choirs in Ohio are a big deal.
They don't mess around. They don't mess around.
Yeah.
Ohio's...
What's happening in Ohio?
Ohio.
Ohio.
It's a weird place.
I was actually going to ask, so you mentioned that you played piano growing up because your parents made you take lessons.
Yes.
And then obviously with theater, there's a lot of singing involved with that. But what were you more of an instrumentalist, or were you always just kind of singing was your main?
I was a bit of both. I always kind of sang piano and I always played piano and sang at the same time. But I guess I would say earlier on I was more of a singer because I did so much theater. I did theater for about 10 years.
Oh, wow.
So I grew up just singing musical theater all the time.
How did you discover Acapella Academy?
So my friend who was in choir with me, we were quite the choir nerds in high school, and he told me about it through a tweet that Eric Whitaker had sent out.
Uh-huh.
because Eric Whitaker had tweeted about Acapella Academy. So I thought,
I feel like I vaguely remember that.
yeah, so I thought, hey, that sounds fun. At the time, I was going to Stage Door Manor during the summers, like a
Okay.
theater camp.
Yeah.
And so I thought I'd done that for 3 years, and I thought it was a good time to kind of wrap up and maybe try something new. So I applied to Acapella Academy, and thankfully got accepted.
Yeah. What was your first year like doing it?
My first year was really, really fun. It was because it was just a bunch of choir nerds all together, and I didn't know that it's like weird to meet everybody who's a choir nerd in there.
In one place.
Yeah, in one place. And it was really a magical time because nobody knew each other, and everybody was just super excited to be there. And it was really, really, really a great time. I met some amazing people who I still am very good friends with today.
Was your group directed by Dave Grossman?
My group, yes. I was in a group called Pop Rocks, with ROX. You know, we were very edgy back then. Yeah, so I was in a group called Pop Rocks, and it was the more of the pop group, if the name didn't give it away. And yeah, Dave Grossman was the director. He was great. Mario Jose was our assistant director, who he's quite the guy. He's amazing.
A good duo.
Yeah, he's great. And so definitely met some special people in that group and in the whole camp in general.
Yeah. Dave Grossman. Shout out Dave Grossman. I know Anthony back here knows him very well, and he does a festival out here for high school kids.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And then so your second year, another friend of the show, Tracy, I believe, was your director.
Yes, Tracy was my director.
Tracy.
I actually do not remember the name of that fucking group. God, but
Here,
it was...
I can get it right here. It is Drastic Measure.
Drastic Measure, yes. It was Drastic Measure. And that group, oh my God, Tracy as a director, holy shit. He is so freaking good at what he does.
Yeah.
Oh my God, he's a genius.
I believe that.
And so that, like, singing his arrangements and just being a part of that, and the whole process, the way that he carries himself, carries his group is incredible. And it's very, like, that was such a fun group to be in just because of the complexity of the music. It was just fun to sing. I sang like everywhere from baritone to alto in that group because he forgot to write in a tenor part, and he wrote an extra alto part. So he was like, Brett, can you sing this? And I was like, sure. Like, sounds good. So yeah, that was great.
So at that point, that was your second year. So you're kind of like, I guess, like in the know of what acapella is and like how it works.
Yes.
At that point, what were your thoughts on it? Was it something like, how did you just feel about it as a genre?
Acapella as a genre. I do find that I like doing it more than I like listening to it.
With that.
Yeah, which I think is I think a lot of people feel the same way. But I love it. It's the ways that you can use your voice really, really, really inspired me. Just in terms of everything, in terms of my music, like just the different ways in which you could expand the voice was something that I never fully grasped until I went to Acapella Academy. And so it was really great to learn that there.
From having talked to a few Academy kids, like whether it's causal or not, just a lot of Academy kids feed into like really great music schools, and you ended up going to NYU Tisch.
Yes.
Did Academy play any role in kind of getting you to do music, or was that something you had decided before that you wanted to study?
That was something I decided before. I was pretty set actually on going into theater. And there came a point around sophomore or junior year of high school, before I went to Acapella Academy, where I really started writing a lot of songs. One of our family friends taught me how to produce music. And so I was really getting into that, and I realized that maybe that was something that I wanted to explore further. because going to school for musical theater, the idea of that really seemed horrible to me. So I kind of was choosing between the two, and I liked the idea more for going for pop music or music production rather than musical theater.
So, what year are you in now? Are you junior or senior?
I am a senior. I'm about to graduate in about
wow.
like a week or so. So
Oh.
What?
yeah.
I didn't realize. That's so soon.
Yeah, it's too
That's
soon.
awesome. Well, I guess just going back to the beginning. So, obviously you went into it knowing that okay, pop music is the thing that I want to do and I'm going to pursue that. But once you actually got there and you were in the midst of it all, even just the first week, what was it sort of like being like, okay, now I'm actually in this thing?
It was great. I mean, I really, really loved it from start to finish.
Yeah.
I go to the Clive Davis Institute of Recorded Music, and there it's dubbed as an entrepreneurial school. So it's not. I don't want to say it's not focused on artistry, but it's focused on a holistic education. So you
Yeah.
get to learn engineering and production and performance and songwriting and the business and just everything that surrounds the music industry. So you really get a taste for it all, and then you kind of get to it gives you a wider platform to explore and then to choose from of what you actually have a passion for. So that was really nice for me.
Yeah. And so I think that at least maybe earlier in your college career that translated into your work with the NHarms, the N'harmonics
Yes.
at NYU, who I believe you recorded a single for them. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah. So I got into the NHarms as a freshman, and I auditioned for them solely because Shams Ahmed said,
Shout out.
Yeah, shout out to Shams. He just said, "You're gonna be in the NHarms," and I said, "Okay, sure, whatever," you know. So I auditioned for them, and really thankfully I got in, because still 3 years later, I guess now, I'm still best friends with all these people that I met in the group, and I'm the music director right now. It's a great time, and we did record a single. We recorded Colors, which was from our 2016 ICCA set. So I recorded that song, and it was a very special song, and it's a very fun song to sing.
Yeah. I feel like the NHarms in particular like match up. I think I agree with Sham's assessment of why you should be in the NHarms and that. I've never seen y'all actually perform live, but like from videos and everything, it feels like you're very much like the left of center like pop acapella group in the collegiate sphere in the US.
Yeah. I think that's a pretty correct assessment. I think something that we pride ourselves on, and that is really cool about our group, is that we are all first individual artists. And we all kind of have our own thing going on, whether it's music, whether it's theater, whether it's directing or film. Like, we're all a bunch of individual artists who get together, and this is kind of our fun outlet to kind of come together and do something as a group. So that's something really cool about NHarms that I immediately loved.
How has doing your own solo thing and being in the NHarms, how has that affected either or?
So being the NHarms, without, I think, acapella just in general, and especially the NHarms, my music wouldn't sound the way that it sounds. Because I love experimenting with vocal texture, vocal harmonies, and that really came from acapella, and all the weird sounds, all the experimentation that comes from NHarms, and also being in a group with Tracy as the director.
Right.
You know, all those really like pushing the boundaries of what can be done in a certain genre. That has inspired me so much in my own music. So I do owe a lot to all the acapella experience that I have.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I can say that at least for me, we just put out a record that was at least in some part inspired by some of the stuff that you've done, and it was kind of like coming from a same place of like acapella kind of opens this whole world of vocal, things that you can achieve with the voice, and it's like fun to push that on.
Yeah,
there, for sure.
exactly. Because I feel like normal pop music doesn't. It relies a lot on other instruments, so the computer. And so it's just fun to see what you can do with your voice before everything.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And I even feel like the tides are starting to slowly turn towards more vocal texture being like, I don't know,
More
at the
Yeah.
forefront
Yeah,
of stuff.
totally.
I mean, I think
Um,
that started super hard with what Lord's Royals. That was like a kick drum, a snare, and just all vocals, and
Yeah.
which was pretty
Sure.
which was pretty cool for like what it was going up against when it came out.
Yeah. And now it's like the chops and the samples are like super big. I
Yeah,
feel.
yeah, yeah.
Well, so you'd mentioned in high school that, or even before that, you'd like, started to write songs and were being kind of taught production. But I feel like a lot of musicians, like we just talked to Sam Creighton an hour ago.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Like yeah, like everybody starts writing songs, and there's voice memos that exist, and there's GarageBand demos. But then what kind of prompted you to take the first step of like putting out things as Brett Castro?
It wasn't until I wrote the song Picture Perfect, which was my first single, that I felt confident enough to put it out. Before that, I came into college thinking that I was going to be a folk songwriter. And after learning so much more about production, and I studied abroad in Berlin, where it was just almost purely electronic music that we learned and that we listened to there. It really inspired me that electronic music could be just as compelling as folk music. And so I sort of tried to blend the two. I mean, I still have my folk tendencies, I guess, and people always make fun of the way that I pronounce words when I sing. And that's from the folk side of like the weird ways that I can say words when I sing. But and like the lyrics and the stories, I love the way that folk music tells those stories.
Yeah.
But so I kind of and then I put it up against electronic music, because I found myself listening to way more electronic music and way more R&B and like this new style of music that's now happening way more than folk music. So I thought, if I'm listening to it, I should be probably making it because I'm enjoying it more. So that's kind of where that came from. I don't even remember the original question. I don't know if I answered that.
No, it's great. So I just going off of that too, we read somewhere that some of your influences are Bon Iver, the Avett Brothers.
It's the Avett.
Is it? Okay.
We were wrong on all fronts.
The Avett Brothers and Prince. So those are obviously I think each of those groups have a distinct sound. I don't know too much about Avett Brothers.
Yeah. So Avett Brothers was a folk
yeah.
band that my brothers introduced me. My brothers introduced me to the Avett Brothers when I was super young, and we always sang Avett Brothers songs together, because we just wanted to be like the Avett Brothers. That was like our goal when we were younger.
The Castro Brothers.
Exactly. So we always sang all of their songs, would split up the parts exactly like the Avetts did. And then, so that's where I get a lot of my, maybe, I guess, songwriting inspiration from.
Harmony, proclivities.
Yeah, exactly. Just like the clever ways that they put stories and that they put emotions together was really poignant to me, and really connected with me. So I try to strive for the same thing that they do with all of their songs. And then Bon Iver, especially the last album that he put out, 22 Million, was, I mean, just incredible. And that also going along with what acapella can do in like pop music. He used vocals. he always has used vocals so beautifully. And in this one, kind of blended the electronic and the vocals, and that was just mind blowing to me. I still listen to that album and I'm totally mind blown. Yeah, so that was Bon Iver kind of bridged that vocal gap for me, and then Prince. I mean, Prince. Like he's I always say he's the most sensual artist of all time.
Yeah.
Cause like he sings anything, he writes anything, and it's like it's like butter, I'm melting. It's the whole thing, and like and the grooves and the arrangements and the way that, like, if you listen to an 80s playlist and then Prince comes on, like his songs could be top hits today.
Yeah.
Which always amazes me against like the 80s sound of all the
Yeah.
other songs. I'm like, shit, like he could have been top 10 songs today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which
Well, speaking of the hits of today, I think we want to talk about that song that you're talking about, Picture Perfect, not Pitch Perfect. But like where did that, why was that the first one that you wanted to put out into the world?
Well, that was the first one that the styles of the kind of Bon Iver folk and the electronic kind of blended very nicely to me. And that song also just meant a lot to me. It was about it was about how I grew up, and in suburbia, it's a very it's like a masquerade. It's a big facade in a way sometimes. At least the way that I grew up was that, you know, you have your nice house and the white picket fence and the red front door and everything. Yeah. And everybody kind of keeps up that facade no matter what is going on inside the house. And so that's what I found in my family. And then also after I released the song and after I talked to a lot of people, that's how a lot of people were feeling about whether it was about addiction, which is what my family still struggles with and has struggled with through the years, or divorce, or like any of these issues, or mental health, which really, like, everybody knows somebody who's been affected by any one of these, and that song just kind of meant that song was my take on all of those issues, of just kind of how it feels to grow up in a house like that kind of keeps quiet about it and kind of not necessarily tries to suppress it, but like doesn't talk about it as openly as I would have liked. So that's that's what Picture Perfect's about.
So you've mentioned with that one too that like you kind of go for a sensory visual experience when you're trying to put something together. Like what was in your head that you wanted to express in terms of the visuals of it?
I don't know. I really like creating beautiful soundscapes in production, and really putting the listener inside of a whole world that the song can live in. And then I like to kind of contrast that beauty of the production with a sort of story that's a bit darker, and that has a bit of layers underneath. So that's what I try to do in terms of paint a picture, is that with like the facade that you might be looking at, I want people to hear as well.
I'm smiling to hold up the walls now. Let me cry a little quieter. I'll stay looking strong, and you can find me in that picture perfect, always hurting, house on the corner. I'll be sitting on my bed.
And for that one in particular, so you did some production work on that. Obviously did the songwriting for that. arranged the entire thing. So that I'm guessing that was your first like blah, this is like my everything in this project, which is really cool. How do you feel like you grew during that songwriting experience?
So I guess while I was writing it, it was more of just kind of pouring out a bunch of pent up feelings that comes
Yeah.
with songwriting. And then after I was done with it, listening back, I really hadn't fully understood what style I was going for or what type of genre or whatever. I was just kind of pouring it all out. I wrote that song from like 1 a.m. to 7 a.m. one night. And so I wasn't quite paying attention. That's why the whole song is falsetto, is because I was trying to keep quiet for my neighbors. So I wasn't quite thinking about all of that. But then afterwards, like listening back to it in the studio, it was just it showed me a lot of what I could do, as opposed to what I've been doing with like
Yeah.
I was writing so many songs with the acoustic guitar, and then I was finally experimenting with drum samples and synths and electric guitars. And so it really showed me the possibilities while still keeping the integrity while still keeping my integrity of songwriting. And so that's kind of what that song did for me personally.
I think I want to talk to you about just like your production style and how it's evolved, even into the next single, Much About Sadness. I feel like there's a new layers introduced in the soundscapes and the way that it was built sonically. Can you kind of just talk about production holistically and then that kind of evolution to the next?
Yeah. So really every song, for me at least, starts off very differently, because I used to write all on like acoustic guitar and piano. So I still do that very often, and it's very refreshing to me to just sit down with one instrument and no computer and no electronics and pour out a song. That's very therapeutic to me. But then I also write a lot of songs with the beat first, because I've gotten so far into production that I continuously make music on my computer, on Ableton, on Logic. And so with Much About Sadness, I wrote that one just sitting down on a guitar. And that's, I wrote that one. One of my professors, who's also a mentor to me, challenged me to write a song with a specific chord in it, which I honestly don't remember the name of, like a substitution chord. The chord is in the song is in E major, and he wanted me to put in the chord like F major and then with a major 7 on it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so
like a tritone subby.
yeah, it's like
thingy.
kind of a tritone sub, but it's not the tritone. It's just a straight up major chord. Yeah, I forgot. It's like the 4 of 4 of 4 or something. Like I don't even
certainly
I don't even remember. But he told me that, and he challenged me to write that song. And so that's where the bridge of Much About Sadness comes in. All those weird chord changes.
I was
And-
actually thinking about that today. I was like, oh, that's a very specific choice. Like those chords. That's funny that you're
yeah,
talking
and so
about it.
that specific chord really came out of just being challenged to do it. And when I showed it to him, he was very surprised. He thought I was going to use it. He was like, he said that he thought I was going to use it in a tritone sub sort of way, like going back to the 1. But he was surprised when it was just a very, very obvious choice to go to that chord right away. So yeah, in terms of the production, that's kind of where those chord changes came from. And then I always just love 3-bar harmonies, because why not?
Yeah.
It makes it,
You can't go wrong with them.
you can,
Yeah.
and people are always really impressed when like 3 voices sing in harmony that are all singing different notes. It's
Just to go back, just to go back to Much About Sadness. So
Yeah.
that one, obviously, the lyrics are very intense in a great way. So could you kind of speak to the songwriting process for that one and where
So
that kind of stemmed from?
Much About Sadness was written about a girl I was seeing at the time, and she was dealing with depression. And so that was, my song was just kind of, like, the lyrics to that are just kind of telling her that I'll be there for her no matter what, and give her that support without quite asking questions about anything. Like, I wanted to be the support that I never saw while growing up with everybody around me. And so I wanted to offer that to her in that way. And so that's what that was the inspiration behind the song.
We're loving like angels in our bed. We're sleeping like devils in our head. We're loving with everything that I'm loving with everything.
It kind of, and then so both Much About Sadness and Picture Perfect later were on the little EP that you put together, the Cry a Little Quieter EP.
Yes.
Even just like on the base level of the name of that, I feel like, and you've kind of mentioned it, but I feel like there's a theme of at least, actually no, even into The Way I Hurt, which we'll get to, there's this kind of theme of repressed emotion and like, you know, dealing with that and like how you're trying to overcome that repression in some way.
Yes.
Is that?
No,
Yeah.
that is completely correct. Unfortunately, no. No, yeah. Because I grew up kind of not talking about a lot of these issues. I still find myself very hesitant to talk about them, and so I have been getting better with that. And a reason that I've been getting better is because I've been writing all these songs about it, because I do want to help start the conversation and open the conversation about mental health, about addiction, about anything that anybody might be going through that people don't necessarily want to talk about or feel it's appropriate to talk about. That's very important to me because that's something that I didn't necessarily have enough of when I was growing up. So I let that kind of seep into my music at most of the times.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so like I'd mentioned, I was messaging Shams earlier, and
Yes.
I think this kind of relate. It's along this vein, but he asked.
I'm scared
us to ask.
I'm scared of the questions you're gonna ask from Shams.
No,
I'm
it's
just saying.
They're
really-
not
it's really
scary
nothing bad.
questions, I promise.
He asked about what you want to achieve with your music and like what audience you want to hit, and then how that kind of relates to your personal life and what you're trying to achieve.
Right. Have you ever seen the movie Inside Out?
Yeah.
I hope you have, because it's it's a beautiful movie. I cry every time. But just kind of the message of that is that it's okay to be sad. It's okay to talk about these things. It's okay to let people know that you're feeling bad. You don't have to put on a smile if you're not feeling it. You don't have to put up that facade. That's kind of the same feeling that I have behind my music a lot of the times, is just that, it's very, very okay to feel emotion, and it's not out of the norm, and you're not weird because of it. And whatever you're feeling, we should be able to talk about, and we should be able to deal with and have conversations about. So that's the kind of message that I try to send through my music.
Yeah.
I might go as far to Jesus Christ. I might go as far to say as I don't know if that's right at all.
I might go so far as to say.
I might go so far as to
I
say.
think we got it.
I might go so far as to say that, like, with in transitioning to The Way I Hurt, that like it's it's not saying that there's beauty in those negative emotions, but that it's like it's beautiful to feel kind of in the way that you kind of having that dichotomy of the beautiful soundscape with those sadder lyrics is that it's not a shameful thing, right? That it's like that you're kind of like celebrating that almost in a way, especially with like a song called "The Way I Hurt."
Yeah, yeah, I do think it's a beautiful thing to feel, because life would be boring if you were kind of happy all the time. I think so. Maybe that's a weird thing to say. I don't
No.
know.
I don't think
But no, I do think I just think it's important to both acknowledge your feelings within yourself, most importantly, but then also be able to find somebody who you can talk to and acknowledge those feelings outside of yourself. That's something that I definitely struggle with, is that I feel things and then I say, well, nobody else should have to deal with this. So, so I'm not going to tell anybody. But I've definitely found that that talking to somebody is definitely the more healthy and helpful thing to do. So,
Yeah.
so that's definitely what The Way I Hurt was about, is just kind of explaining to somebody, hey, this is how I've always dealt with things, of keeping in and not talking about it and being secretive. So I'm sorry. Like, I know that this sucks. I know that it's unfair, but this is how I was kind of bred to deal with things, and this is how I had to deal with things. So I'm learning to not do that. But while I'm learning, be patient.
I've been sleeping with the door. I've been sleeping with the door. I've been dreaming that you might come. I've been dreaming that you might come. I've been singing to myself again. I've been singing to myself. I've been taking back roads, driving round in circles. That's the way. That's the way. That's just the way I heard. No, let me fight this up. Don't give it time. I'll come home. That's the way. That's the way I heard. I've been taking back.
Yeah, so just as kind of like a comment as like an outsider, it seems like over the past year you've definitely done like so much and put out so many different things. And what I really respect is how you treat every individual song as like its own thing. Like everything is pretty, they're obviously all connected because they're all coming from you, but each song has a very specific purpose and intention, which I think is really cool. And that I think is leading to whatever things you're going to next. So obviously the thing that we want to talk about was your latest single, I Hope You Never Get Over Me. And when I was listening to this one, obviously I'm a fan of all your songs, but this one in particular really stood out just because I felt like lyrically it is really easy to understand, and I mean that in like a great way. Like you deliver the lyrics so well that like the concept comes across super well.
Thank you.
So I guess just to kind of start the conversation about that, where did that idea come from, and how did the songwriting process start for that one?
So I Hope You Never Get Over Me. That was after a breakup, as you can guess, probably.
Yeah.
And I'm not quite sure what the first thing I thought of in the song was, but I do remember thinking that writing a song saying that I hope you never get over me would be funny. I thought that it was. I still think right now that the song is kind of funny, though a lot of people that I show it to say I don't think it's funny, but but I just thought the concept was. I was like, I've heard so many songs being like, I hope I never get over you, or that I don't know. It's a lot of the songs that are like, fuck you, I'm over you, or like you ruined my life or whatever. But this song was it was kind of just about the lingering feelings of a relationship, and also about, and perhaps more about just kind of learning to grow after a relationship. To me, at least, that's what the song was about.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you bravely sent us some of your early voice memos from writing this.
Yes,
Um,
I'd like to say
and I
very,
think-
very bravely. I seriously haven't listened to these since like for
Well-
so long after I sent these to you.
Maybe we can take a listen to one of them right now.
Yeah, let's do it.
I hope you never get over me. I hope you never get over me. Girl, I know that I've been fucked up lately, but I'm trying to fix my head so I can get straight. I hope you never get over me.
So actually, now I remember how I started writing this song is because I was working on an acapella arrangement of Cha-Ching by Chairlift.
No
And
way.
yeah, and one of the lines that I had written in myself, like a melody line, was like dun dun ba da ba da ba ba, something like that.
Mhm.
And I'd written that, and then I didn't end up finishing that arrangement, but I remember loving that riff so much
Mhm.
that I was like, well, I wrote that melody, so I'm allowed to use it in one of my songs. So I wrote this song because of that melody, actually, as well as all the feelings on top of it. That's where the music came from, was from that melody, and that melody didn't even make it into the final version. The demo just had a lot going on, and I showed it to one of my friends, who's a superb songwriter, and I respect everything she does. And I showed it to her, and she just said, there's so much going on in the vocal, in the production. There's just so much, and it doesn't really sound like you. You know, it doesn't sound as genuine as I think you want it to sound. And so after that, and I think she thought I was just going to like take out a few synths or guitars. But I really took that to heart because she was right. You know, it's like when somebody tells you something that you don't want to hear, but that you know is completely correct, and it sucks. So I went back and kind of rewrote the chords, changed the tempo, rewrote the whole melody around it, just to make it more straightforward and get it across as genuinely, as honest and as honestly as I could. And so that's where the final version stemmed from.
Did the is the vocal chops thing that you sent us, did that make that onto the record, or is that just like you putting down the idea?
That made it onto the final record. Yeah. So the vocal I do a lot of I record a lot of my ideas while I'm walking down the street. Because I always work on songs, and I'll write like a verse and a chorus, and then I'll kind of sit on it, and I usually walk 30 minutes to get anywhere that I need to go. So ideas will often pop into my head, and that's kind of the reason why on the voice memos that I sent over, the singing's very quiet or off tune, because I often sing quiet enough so that I can't even hear myself because of, all the construction. There's like a million people on the street.
1, 2, 3, 4, 1. I hope you never get over.
It was on Broadway and 8th Street. I remember exactly where I was as I reached for my phone. And then,
The historic site.
The historic site, yeah. They're going to put a plaque there someday. And then I went back home after I recorded it, and I listened to it and kind of chopped up all these vocal takes that I had to make the vocal chops that you hear in the final song.
Super dope. It kind of reminds me of there's a video of Lauv, or however you say that, making I Like Me Better, and he just sings it into a phone and puts it in Ableton or Logic or whatever, and chops it up, and it kind of reminds me of that.
No, yeah. Yeah, I actually think Love might have went to NYU. I'm not entirely sure. I might have made that up. I just know one of my friends is like super obsessed with him, in like a weird way. So I don't know. I might have just made up facts there. That's fake news.
In this university, you went to NYU.
Yeah.
We'll just say that that's true.
Awesome.
Do-do-do.
So I'm actually just curious too, because that demo that you sent us, it was marked as June 2017. So obviously that's a while ago from today.
Yes. Wow.
So
yes.
I'm curious if like, because that one in particular had a big revision process in terms of like kind of flip-flopping it and throwing it on his head. Is that something that you found that you do in general with your songs, or was this one in particular that was just how it kind of happened and came together?
I find that with a lot of my songs, I like to produce and write at the same time and kind of get all the ideas and throw everything that I have and that comes to mind at the song at once.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, I kind of sit on it for a little while and take a break after I'm done finishing that whole production and writing.
Mm-hmm.
And then after, when I come back, I usually go through and listen to every track soloed and delete everything I don't absolutely love. Yeah, because I usually overproduce a lot of my songs at first. So after that process, I find that it gets, every idea is more clear. So I do that with a lot of my songs. Yeah, with this song, it was a very lengthy process of putting it together. But some songs take, a couple weeks to put together, and some songs take over a year.
Yeah.
So,
I'm curious of like, because you obviously do so much of it yourself, but you have collaborators, and I think you've increasingly had more as time has gone on that you work with closely on stuff, and how that kind of has changed or influenced your creative process.
yeah, I started writing a lot more with other people, whether it's for their projects, for just to write a song, or anything like that. And so really working with other writers has really opened me up, because it's amazing to see how other people work in the studio, in very different ways that I do. For example, I suck if I'm working with a producer and they just say, get in front of a mic and sing.
Mm-hmm.
They just give me a track and they just say, go. I'm so fucking bad at that, and I cannot and like I cannot come up with, like, I'm so bad. Like, I will sing like one note and like a line that's so bad, and I suck at that. But I work with somebody. I've been writing with Michael Bloom, who's an artist based in Harlem. Yeah.
Cool.
No, yeah. So and he
That's awesome.
is fucking incredible at that. Like, I'll play him a track and he gets in front of a mic and just sings the most beautiful lyrics, the most beautiful melodies, like first try. And so things like that inspire me to kind of get better at that, or just say like, wow, I didn't even know that was like something that people could be just absolutely great at,
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so just working with other people, I pick up on, some of their tropes, some of the ways that they write, like even the ranges that they sing. Like, I started singing lower because I was working with Michael Bloom and he sings super fucking low. So I was like, oh, I can maybe use my baritone a little bit more.
So I'm sure there's tons more we can talk about. You obviously are delving into so many aspects of music as a whole, whether it be production or songwriting, or there's just so many different things that you're pursuing within it, which is really, really awesome. And maybe we can have another episode again in the future for
Yeah.
your next album,
Yeah.
your next EP. I'm sure there's more to come. But just some questions that we like to ask our guests just to wrap things up. So there are two questions we like to ask, and the first one is, what sort of things and they can be trends or just changes that you're seeing in the music industry. What sort of things you see that you're excited by or looking forward to?
I'm excited that major labels aren't as big as they used to be. In the ways that, like someone like Sheck West with Mo Bamba can get like a top 5 hit with, just like, I think it started off with posting a song to SoundCloud. And so that's really exciting that, and even some of the major labels are like even trying to sound more like indie labels or, weird productions. So that's really exciting to me that it's kind of getting a bit more decentralized than it used to be.
Down with establishment. I don't know. And then the last question is just, what is next for you? What can we expect to see from Brett Castro?
So I Hope You Never Get Over Me was a single off of an EP that I'm gonna put out. It's gonna be entitled "I'm Sorry."
Breaking news! You heard it here first.
Yes. Breaking news, I am sorry. So it's gonna be an EP full of all the breakup songs I've written in the past year, and it'll just be a fun time.
A fun time, and that'll be a very
I'm
sad
apologizing.
time. Well, thank you so much for joining us. As Kayla mentioned, I thought of like 10 more questions, but we'll save that for the next one.
Yeah, we'll just
Oh
ask
my
you
gosh.
after we end.
Yeah. And
Thank you so much. This was so much fun.
Yeah, thanks. And we hope that we see you next week for a new episode of Head Voice.
That this other side of me shatters all we've worked on, breaks love that I have earned from you. I hope you never get over me. I hope you never get over me. Girl, I know that I've been fucked up lately, but I'm trying to fix my head so I can get straight. I hope you never get over me.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode with Brett. You're now hearing his song, I Hope You Never Get Over Me. Guys, what do you think of that episode?
I really loved it. All his music is just so incredible. You all need to listen to it because it's incredibly honest and unique, and I feel a lot of the same like influences in his music that I love to hear all over the place, and it's just so worth your time and your ears. Please listen to it.
Yeah, I also feel like it's really impressive how much he's doing and how much he's done within the last year. And you can definitely see his growth from a year ago to now, which is really awesome.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I think, what he's doing as an artist is inspiring for somebody of his age, of us as older people, which is just, it's cool to see him, like, really honest. And he's, like, very, I feel like cerebral about how he, like, puts everything together, and that it's not just, like, slapping things down. He's, like, very deliberate with all his choices. But for now, definitely go check out all of his stuff. We'll be linking all of his singles and videos and everything in the show notes. I haven't plugged what the show notes are in a while, but if you just started listening, the show notes should be right under the episode, or if you're on the podcast app, you just click it and they'll be right there. They show all the references that we talked about during the episode. They'll have links to all our guest music, so I definitely recommend that you look there for if you missed anything, if you're like, what were they talking about there? We'll have it all listed in the show notes, so go check that out. Follow us on social media if you haven't already. Leave us a review on iTunes or wherever you listen to music. It really helps us to get the music out there. And, I hope you never get over.
I hope
You never get over.